Sup folks, StugeGG here with episode 4 of my playthrough of Tomboys Need Love Too. The last episode obviously ended on a sour note with us learning about Sophie being assaulted in the restroom in a very vicious way, and we helped her, gave her some clothes, and then as we were going to leave her, as she went to go home, she made a comment about Chris, talking about how Chris was lucky to have us, and we kind of overheard and were like, hey, what's that about? Like, well, Chris was in the bathroom, she was one of the people who assaulted me, Chris was with us most of the time, she might have slipped away and we don't realize it, but we chose to believe that Sophie might have just been mistaken. Maybe she saw Chris, but Chris was just there briefly and wasn't actually part of it or something like that. But we're going to choose to believe in both of them. I don't think Sophie would make something up there. I don't think Chris, from what we've seen, would have done that, even though she obviously doesn't like Sophie. But whatever. We're going to go in and see if we can have some more fun this time. But by the time I returned to school, second period was almost over. Class was still in session, and for a little while longer, I would be the only student roaming the halls. Realizing that, I decided to wait out in the courtyard for class to end. That way I could show up between classes, rendezvous with Chris, and slip in during the change in teachers. So I actually want to talk to Chris. She's our best friend, talk to her about what happened, and see if she was a part of it. I don't think she was. With the way she was talking to us, I would assume she wasn't, but not that I expect it to be that easy. I wasn't much of a troublemaker, and I didn't usually skip class, so it was rare for me to be doing something like this. As luck would have it, however, my worries were for nothing. I managed to rejoin my class without a fuss. About time you got back. Without a fuss from the teacher, at least. Yo, sorry I kept you waiting. Did I miss anything interesting? As if. It was just history class. I'm more interested in what you were doing. Me? I told you. Don't even try it. There's no way you were in the toilet this whole time. Unless... Chris's facial expression warped as something disgusting came to mind. Whatever you're thinking, you're wrong. Diarrhea? Nope. Constipated? Nope. Masturbating? That whole time, what kind of deviant do you think I am? Chris shrugged. If it's none of those, then... Oh, I know. A smirk crept on Chris's face. So there's no way. There's no way then. You were peeping into the female bathroom, weren't you? What? I quickly looked around to make sure that nobody heard what Chris just said. So that's it. Come to think of it, you never said you were going to the male bathroom, did you? So if she was part of it, she knows what we would have seen in there. Don't be silly. Why would I do something like that? Because you're a teenage boy. You know, for someone who's often mistaken for a teenage boy yourself, you seem to have a pretty low opinion of us. Anyway, you're wrong. I wasn't in the toilet the whole time, okay? I just didn't want to go back to class. Oh? You're getting a taste for truancy? Not a wise confession considering that I'll be speaking to your mother in a matter of hours. Burk. I froze my words continued to put me in an increasingly precarious position. Although I had managed to avoid speaking the truth, in the process I had been labeled a pervert, had my bowels come under scrutiny, and ultimately wound up admitting to being a truant. At this point, perhaps I'd be better off just telling Chris the truth. I agree that we should actually, not in the middle of class, but I should talk to her about the truth. Well, whatever you were doing, it's good to have you back. Class is boring enough with you here. It's utter hell while you're gone. Haha, now who's the bad student? Not that I disagree, of course. School is far more tolerable on the days when you're not absent. Too many R's and L's in the sequence there. You know, maybe we should make a pact. A pact? Yeah, like when one of us is sick, the other skips school to take care of them. That sounds more like something a couple would do. It was only an example, and would that really be so bad? I guess not. I'd certainly rather spend the day taking care of you than attending class. You mean it? Okay, it's settled. Next time you're sick, I'm staying over to take care of you. Hey, why do you assume that I'm the one who's going to be sick? Because you can't take care of yourself. Ugh. Losing the voices, man. Chris really has zero faith in me. Alright, you're on. Next time you're sick, I'll take great care of you. Don't ask for too many sponge baths, alright? It's not nice to take advantage of someone who's worried about you. I should be saying that to you, you lecher. Really, exposing me to that kind of sight first thing in the morning. You're back to that again? If I see that happen while I'm bathing you, I'm going to scream. Don't act shy now. This morning you were staring at it shamelessly, like you were fixated or something. I was not. I was just a little curious, that's all. As Chris and I grew silent, I finally began to notice the stares of our classmates. Chris and I had been speaking quite loudly, and with our topics including me peeping in the girls' bathroom and Chris saying that I had morning wood, we caught the attention of many of our classmates. The boys who overheard simply sighed at our shared plight. The girls, on the other hand, began whispering and giggling amongst themselves. I had no doubt that rumors about Chris and I were being born at that very moment, but rather than worry about what rumors might spread or how our classmates would see Chris and I going forward, my heart went to a darker place. Right. I'd forgotten how easy it is for a rumor to start. This might be what it's like for Sophie. One moment she's chatting with a classmate, next she's being accused of sleeping with them. All it takes is a slight misunderstanding, and before you know it, everything is spiraled out of control. So there's no way Chris acts like that if she was just part of an assault. I really hope not. For the rest of the day, my mind remained firmly on the troubling events from earlier. As expected, I couldn't get the sight of Sophie out of my head, nor would I soon forget everything that had happened. The mistreatment of someone I thought to be beloved by all, the heinous rumors being spread about her, Sophie's attitude when I first saw her, it was all difficult for me to swallow. Even though things turned out well between us, the ordeal was far from over. Sophie and her aggressors wouldn't just forget that today ever happened, nor would Sophie's new hairstyle go unnoticed. Plus, she said they took a ton of photos of her. If those photos are popping up, that's really bad. Whether her situation impacted on me directly or not, Sophie was in a bad place, mentally and socially. She needed someone on her side, and for better or for worse, I wanted to be that friend. I realize it's selfish of me to think like this, but this could be the chance I've been waiting for. Today I was able to talk to Sophie naturally, without stuttering, hiding, or even just generally making a fool of myself. I was so overcome by concern that none of that even registered. What's more, I finally made a good impression on her. I was able to help her when she needed me most, and a good person like Sophie won't soon forget that. I wasn't thinking that way at the time, and definitely wasn't my motivation for helping her, but even so, I really did make quite a breakthrough. I silently walked along as my thoughts revolved around my actions from earlier. I was a little worried that I may have subconsciously acted with impure intentions, given the outcome and the person involved, but otherwise I was grateful that I was able to help the girl whom I longed to grow closer to. Disgusting. I lifted my head and looked to the side as a familiar voice dragged me back to reality. Don't me. You've been grinning like an idiot for a while now. I hate it, like, we went in there out of concern and did a good thing, but now he's like, oh, I can use this to get closer to her. It's kind of weird and creepy. Like, he does cool, nice things, and then he goes really creepy. I don't know. Just what are you thinking about that has you so fixated? True enough, I'd barely spoken at all since Chris and I left school. I'd been preoccupied with thoughts of Sophie all day. It wasn't evident in class, where we were supposed to be quiet anyway, but now that Chris and I were alone together, my silence spoke volumes. Realizing that, I shrugged and tried to brush off her comment. It's nothing important, don't worry about it. See, I tried to talk to her about it. See, I feel like if we're just pursuing her, this is the thing that you do. But we're gonna go through, and honestly, I think she's like who we're gonna pursue at the end here, but this is what we should talk about because I want to get real stuff from her. But I'm gonna save at every choice, so we're gonna go ahead and save. If it's unimportant, then you should just tell me and get it over with. Fine, you're not going to like it though. I was just thinking about Sophie. Ugh. Predictably, Chris's expression soured the moment I spoke Sophie's name. See, that's why I didn't want to say anything. Yeah, well, it's your fault for thinking about her, even though you're walking with me. What is that supposed to mean? You know what I'm saying. I told you this morning to stay focused on me, so why are you thinking about her, even though I'm right here with you? I thought back to our conversation on the way to school this morning. As Chris claimed, she did say something about me looking only at her. I didn't think she was serious at the time, but now that I was on the defensive, she made sure to play that card. Come on, Chris, you can't expect me to never think about anyone other than you. I understand that, but is it too much to expect your undivided attention while we're alone together? I glanced at Chris as she suddenly let slip a startlingly honest and heartfelt plea. Come to think of it, I'm not being fair to Chris, am I? I disappeared for an hour, expecting her to cover for me, all so I could meet up with a girl whose name makes Chris shudder. When I got back, I didn't call Chris a thing. I lied to her, ignored her, and indulged in self-serving thoughts about my own actions towards Sophie. Chris deserves better than that. I lowered my head and sighed. I'm sorry, Chris. You're right. Until we get home, you're the only person on my mind. I still think we should talk to her to try to get a little bit of more information. Thank you, Kai. I appreciate it. Though it's a little late to be saying that now. Coinciding with my declaration, our houses came into view. It was not my intention, and see my concession was pointless after all. We're gonna stick with our choice. And just, if it gives us a bad ending, we'll go back and get the good ending. Oh, nothing weird happened. After a restless night filled predominantly with nightmares about what happened to Sophie, I awoke to find a particular sight awaiting me. Staring back at me were two wide, curious eyes fixated on my body. Without even thinking, I immediately knew that the person staring at me was Chris. Despite my plea yesterday about not entering my room while I was asleep, Chris had once again decided to pay me a visit. And this time around, she managed to enter my room before I woke up. Hee 2 days in a row. You must really be pent up. Is it because you're too embarrassed to do that while I'm staying here? Chris smirked as she continued to stare at my body. Embarrassingly, what Chris had been staring at with great interest and curiosity from before I woke up was not my sleeping face, nor was it my chest as it continued to rise and fall. It was my crotch. Just like yesterday, I was on the receiving end of sexual harassment, feeling thoroughly violated as my best friend eyed me up like a piece of meat. Squirming around under her intense gaze, I barely mustered a reply. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work what way? You know, being pent up, even if you aren't, it still happens. Eh? Really? I see. It seems that my knowledge about male anatomy is still lacking. Perhaps I need a test subject to help me study. I reflexively covered my crotch with my hands. Ha, I'm just kidding, Kai. There's no need to cover up. Besides, it's not like you have anything I didn't see when we were kids. What kind of ridiculous reasoning is that? As Chris implied, it wasn't strange for the two of us to see one another naked when we were young children. If we were using something that might stain our clothes, we'd play naked. If we were dirty, we'd strip down and wash ourselves under the hose. There was no sexual element, we weren't even aware of the difference in our sexes, and of course, this many years later, I was sure that even Chris didn't remember what she saw. Call it ridiculous if you want, but it's true, isn't it? I guess, but even so, that's a pretty weak argument. How so? Well, you know, just because you've seen once before, it doesn't mean it isn't embarrassing. You wouldn't want me to see you naked again, would you? That's... Chris averted her gaze at the target of our conversation suddenly changed. That's different. It's different for girls. My body isn't the same as it was when we were kids. So I'm not gonna say this choice is fine. So, okay. That isn't a very persuasive argument given that you're talking about your own body. Maybe I should take a look and see for myself. I thrust my open hands out with palms facing outward, as if I was about to grab Chris's chest. You want to see? Well, I can't trust your testimony, can I? How will I know if your body's any more adult if I don't check for myself? I wiggled my fingers around and smirked perversively as I moved closer. They didn't say perversely. It should be perversively, right? Smirked perversively as I moved around closer to Chris. Oh, okay. Don't worry, I'll be... Okay, it actually, happened here. And I'm guessing if I have that patch on, this is a very different scene. Eh? Before I could lower my hands and brush up my exes as a joke, Chris took things to the next level. She began to unbutton her shirt while averting her gaze, slowly removing the buttons one at a time as her face became a deeper shade of red. I stared at Chris in disbelief, watching breathlessly as the last of her buttons came undone. So I think we're going to switch to the sultry voice here in a second. I think we'll start with it. The two sides of her shirt drifted apart, offering me a glimpse of something I dearly hope to see once again. So, what do you, Confused by her own actions, Chris tried to hide her chest, only to then part the two sides of her shirt once more. Chris consciously pulled the fabric away from her chest, exposing both of her breasts and facing directly towards me. She wanted to be seen. Embarrassed to death, exposed in front of a member of the opposite sex, some part of Chris wanted me to look at her with the eyes of a man looking at a woman. I know that I don't have the sex appeal of other girls my age, but even my body has its good points, right? While tightly gripping the bottom of each half of her shirt with either hand, Chris pushed her elbows closer together, pushing her breasts together to make them look bigger. Chris looked down at the small valley she created, then glanced towards me with upturned eyes, as if hoping for a favorable reaction. Kai! I unconsciously gulped. Peeping on my best friend was one thing, but for her to willingly show her body to me was absolutely unthinkable. Was Chris aroused? Was she staring at my crotch earlier with that kind of intent? Or was she simply being swept away by the flow? Without knowing the truth behind her actions, all I could do was stare at Chris with my eyes wide open, unable to refute her claims in the slightest. Come on, Kai, say something. It's more embarrassing if you stay silent like that. An innocent blush masked Chris's face as she turned away while occasionally peeking at me, waiting for some kind of reaction. But the more she fidgeted around, the harder it became for me to comment. Chris's breasts, pressed together to appear larger than usual, jiggled minutely as she turned her body. The unbuttoned halves of her shirt fluttered about, giving me an occasional glimpse of the small pink nipples hiding underneath. Even Chris's trembling lips, which she pressed together as she stared at mine, portrayed her embarrassment and excitement in full. Chris, you... Oh, the wrong voice. Hold on. Back it up. Chris, you... Why are you doing this? Finally, those few words escaped from my lips. I forcefully shifted my gaze from Chris's slender body to her face and made eye contact. The moment I did, Chris quickly looked away. I don't know what's gotten into you this morning, but you shouldn't do things like this. Your body is sacred. What? He's saying this after spying on her? But your body is sacred. It's not something to show off to other people on a whim. You need to treasure yourself more, Christine. Chris, back to regular voice here. Chris's shoulders jolted as I called her name. Her embarrassment slowly began to fade as her expression dropped, gradually morphing into one of both shame and joy. Chris's excitement was fading, the impulse spurring her on had been quelled, and my words continued to reverberate inside her head. Now who's the one saying strange things? And what do you care about what I do with my body? I don't know. It's not the kind of thing I usually think about. But that doesn't mean it isn't true. You may be able to trust me, but if you were to act like this in front of another guy, then... A slight tinge of anger appeared on Chris's face. You think I'd do something like this in front of other people? Stupid Kai. Rather than grow more upset, Chris began to pout. And why do you only call me Christine when it suits you? Honestly, that lack of consideration is why you can't get a girlfriend. I scratched my head nervously as Chris touched upon a subject I didn't want to discuss. That may be so, but I still think you're the one who needs to explain herself. Don't you think you're going a bit far? Why would you show me your, you know? I unconsciously glanced at Chris's chest as I spoke. Realizing that, I hurriedly faced the other direction, desperate to remove the wonderful sight from my field of vision, lest I be tempted once more. Idiot. You don't understand anything, do you? I don't understand, if they can just admit it to each other. I don't get it. The moment that Chris finished talking, I felt a familiar warmth spread across my back. I tried to turn back around, only to find slender yet toned arms wrapped around my waist, locking my body to Chris's firmly. It was at that moment that I became conscious of the soft mouths pressing against my back. Chris, what are you... You're an idiot, Kai. You don't understand the subtleties of women at all. That's why... Okay, I think we go back to the soldier voice. Chris's hot breath tingled the hairs on the back of my neck. Her face drew closer, peeking over my shoulder and inching closer to my lips. You need someone who's willing to go on the offensive. I turned my face towards Chris's. With trembling lips and red cheeks, Chris still did not stop. She continued to move her face closer to mine until our breaths overlapped. It's embarrassing. I don't really know what I'm doing, but if this is the only way to move forward, then... Of course. Of course. Knock, knock. Chris froze mid-sentence as an unexpected and unwelcome sound disturbed us. Kai, are you up yet? It's a school day, so stop slacking off and get ready. Chris quickly let go and began to button her shirt back up. With a red face, she fixed her clothing in the blink of an eye, driven by both embarrassment and desperation. Last chance, Kai. If you aren't up in 10 seconds, the doorknob slowly turned as my mother spoke. Well, wait a second. I'm just getting dressed. I'll be down in a minute, so just hold on a little longer. But my mother, believe me or not, or instead simply noticed the desperation in my voice, she let go of the doorknob. All right, then. Hurry it up, will you? Breakfast is almost ready. Ending our conversation there, the sound of my mother's voice was soon replaced by the echoing of her footsteps. I listened intently as my mother walked down the hall, and once she descended the staircase, I breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, that was close. I need to get a lock on my door or something. Saying that, I turned around to look at Chris. Although she was now fully dressed, Chris's face was still bright red, and she was fidgeting around restlessly. Christine? Chris's shoulders jolted once again as I called her name. It seemed like every time I called Chris by her full name, she reacted strangely. But in this case, the situation itself was more likely to blame. I'm going to go for a shower and head downstairs. You should head down while I'm bathing, so your mother doesn't get suspicious. Oh, yeah, sure. Chris left my room in a hurry. With her face bright red, she closed the door behind her, then quickly ran to the guest room in which she had been sleeping. Meanwhile, I simply stared at the door, unmoving. Even with Chris gone from my sight, her visage remained burned into my mind. Yet again, Chris's presence in this house had left me with a confusing yet vivid memory and instilled in me the undeniable reality that she was really a beautiful girl. She really was a beautiful girl. The way I said it's fine too. Yawn. Man, I'm really not up for this today. Are you okay, Kai? You look even more lethargic than usual. I'll be alright. I just need to sleep through a class or two and I'll be back to normal. All through breakfast, my morning shower, and even now during our walk to school, I couldn't stop yawning. Well, the visit that Chris paid me early this morning did get my blood pumping. It wasn't enough to erase the fatigue of a bad night's sleep. Lack of sleep, huh? Could it be that you were kept up by the thoughts of the cute girl in the room next to yours? Don't flatter yourself. The only time you keep me awake at night is when we stay up late playing video games. Party pooper, couldn't you just humor me? Lie to you? My dear friend, you know I could never do that. Yeah, right. Well, no matter what you say, I know that I get a rise out of you. Quite literally, in fact. I reflexively covered my crotch with my hands. Ahaha, exactly right, Kai. But keep it in your pants, okay? No matter how attracted you are towards me, you have to show a little bit of discretion. Don't get cocky. It was just a coincidence, okay? Not that I can say the same for you after the stunt you pulled this morning. What? What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Staring at my crotch while I was asleep. Taking your shirt off, pressing your breasts against me. My mother hadn't shown up when she did. You would have what, Kai? Immediately drained of the fluster adorning her face a moment ago, Chris suddenly questioned me with a serious look on her face. If your mother hadn't shown up when she did, what would you have done? No, I mean, even if she didn't show up, you would have stopped by yourself and... What if I didn't? Chris stopped walking, as did I. Chris? If I did that again while your mother wasn't home and I didn't stop by myself, what would you do? Would you overpower me and force me to stop? Would you just stand there not resisting and let me do whatever I wanted? Or would you actually return my embrace? Despite the embarrassing nature of the topic at hand, Chris did not seem flustered, nor did she avert her gaze. She's going for it. She questioned me with complete seriousness, as though she might actually plan on repeating the scenario from this morning after receiving my blessing. Chris, Don't tell me that you don't know, or that you haven't thought about it. I want an honest answer, Kai. So we're going to save here, obviously. This is a big choice here. But like I said, we're going to pursue Chris this go through. Yeah, so I'm going to say we wouldn't let her have her way because that's us being a beta and not doing anything. Stop Chris would be, no, we're not interested. So that's what we would choose if we want to pursue Sophie. We're going to say, better read this. If I were to approach you like you did this morning and nobody interrupted us, what would you do? I'm going to say, go on the offensive. As difficult as I found it to imagine myself taking the lead, there's only so much a guy can take. With Chris half naked, pressing her body against mine, and nobody around to interrupt us, even I might have the courage to take things to the next level. Chris, the truth is, I don't know what I would do in that kind of situation. In all honesty, I'm still in shock that the scene from this morning happened at all. With that being the case, I have to warn you that if you try that again, I might not be able to control myself. Control yourself? What do you mean, Kai? You know what I'm trying to say. Even I have my limits, Chris. With you pressing your bare chest against me, I think it's safe to say that we'd soon discover what those limits are. So, for your own safety, please don't do that again. If you did, I can't say with certainty that I wouldn't push you down myself. And, after that I might... Kai, what are you even saying? You pushed me down as if... I kind of diffused the situation. I was trying to imply not that we were going to do that, but that we'd embrace her kiss, right? I don't know. I tensed up and looked away as Chris rejected my answer. Even if I myself found it difficult to imagine me doing such a thing, it felt bad to be laughed at when I tried to give a serious response. Oh gosh, Kai, that tone of voice and the expression on your face. I was being serious. Yes, you're right, I'm sorry. I asked you for an honest answer and you gave it to me, unbelievable though it may be. Don't be so sure of that, Chris. I might surprise you. You might indeed. Actually, I wouldn't mind seeing that. For Kai, who can't even talk to most girls, to actually push me down and take control. That would be interesting. I don't think you'd find it interesting if I actually did it. Maybe not. Well, whatever. I'll take your answer into consideration the next time I do something like that. Next time? You're planning on doing that again? Nope. But I didn't plan it this time either, so who knows? That's just... I sighed in exasperation as Chris's irresponsibility and carelessness came to the surface. Even if Chris and I don't have that kind of relationship, that doesn't mean nothing would happen. If Chris were to try something like that again, I really might lose my reasoning and do something I could never take back. Though going by Chris's response, I have to wonder, does Chris actually want me to take the initiative next time? I think she does, right? I'm not crazy? Or is she just as confused about all this as I am? It doesn't seem like she's confused. She was thinking about us in the shower. She's made obvious advances towards us. I think I was just an idiot. The moment we arrived in class, my lively morning with Chris came to a screeching halt. Similar to yesterday, a number of students were absent, not as many, but still enough to raise questions. And of course, among those missing from the classroom was Sophie. Although Chris's presence and actions helped to distract me for a while, I could no longer pretend that yesterday didn't happen. What I saw, what I was told, what I did, it was all bound to resurface. 2 days in a row. I'd like to think that nothing is going on, but maybe you were right, Kai. This does seem a little odd. So, well, what is happening? They can't be doing it again. But I still think your female uprising theory might be a little off. Yeah. I answered half-heartedly as I glanced around the classroom. On closer inspection, the girls who arrived to class late yesterday were present. However, those who skipped the full day were absent. Were they being questioned regarding their truancy, or had they perhaps been suspended after what happened to Sophie? Given what Sophie said about it only being a matter of time before they published those photos of her, there's a very good chance that their punishment would involve suspension, if not something more extreme. Oh, cheer up, Kai. Even if something is going on, it has nothing to do with us, right? I suppose. Whether Chris was telling the truth about not having anything, or about having nothing to do with the matter at hand or not, I couldn't ignore it so easily. I'd already inserted myself into the situation, even if it was only after the conflict died down. I made a point of assisting Sophie and wound up skipping class with her. For better or worse, I was involved. Geez, what's with you, Kai? Ever since we got to class, all you've done is mumble dejectedly. I know school is boring, but it's nothing worth getting depressed over. How about we play a game to kill time? Or maybe we... Whoa, are you seeing what I'm seeing? Unbelievable, she actually showed up. Before Chris could finish speaking, our classmates all suddenly began to whisper amongst themselves. Chris stopped mid-sentence and turned around facing the direction in which everyone else seemed to be looking. The moment she did, Chris too widened her eyes in shock. No way, are you kidding me? Okay, oh no, I've got to do both female voices. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm not too late, am I? The smile on her face and her usual demeanor having returned in full force, Sophie checked the clock on the wall to make sure that she still had some time left before class began. But rather than her tardiness, what caught the attention of my classmates was something far harder to miss. Sophie's new hairstyle, almost identical to that of a certain tomboy. Good morning. Sophie, your hair is... Oh, this? I was just thinking that it was about time for a change in style. And short hair is much easier to manage, you know? Taking care of long hair is far too time-consuming. What do you think? Do you like it? Well, practicality aside, it's kind of... Hearing Sophie ask that question, more than a few of my classmates looked in Chris's direction. Oh, because it's the hair's similar, not because Chris did it. Assuming that I wasn't the only one who found the similarity uncanny, even Chris herself seemed fixated on Sophie's hair, undoubtedly conscious of her own appearance. Oh, I see. I didn't notice before, but it seems like someone else had the same idea as me. I guess great minds do think alike, don't they? After briefly glancing at Chris, Sophie glazed over the observation without giving it any further thought. Whether she had modeled her look on Chris, or it was simply coincidence, the topic was not one Sophie wished to discuss any further. I thought I was late, but where is everyone? Did something happen? Feigning ignorance, Sophie probed our classmates for information. Haven't you heard? Most of the girls in our class got suspended. Oh, they did? What did they do? One of the girls who Sophie questioned looked away. Even if they weren't directly involved in what happened to Sophie, they had no doubt heard from the others what was in store for her. Who knows? Why don't you ask your father? I'm sure he'd tell you. Oh, come now, don't be silly. You know he can't tell me things like that. Is her dad the principal? That would be a breach of privacy, you know? Not to mention abuse of power. Right. The girl whom Sophie was addressing averted her gaze nervously. Despite her friendly tone and bright smile, it seemed that Sophie exuded strong pressure on the girls in front of her. Sheesh, a third of the class is absent, and Sophie just has to be one of the few girls here. And who does she think she's fooling anyway? She totally stole my look. No, you should be flattered. Yeah, right. I don't want people mistaking me for her. Uh-oh. Oh, Christine, you say the funniest things. Suddenly, right beside us, Sophie caused Chris and I to both jump back in surprise. Sophie, what are you... Relax. You need to be so concerned about me, especially when it comes to similarities in our appearance. Even if our hairstyles are similar, there's no way anybody would mix the two of us up. A devious smirk appeared on Sophie's face as she lowered her gaze to Chris's chest. Uh-oh. This is gonna get rough. Thank goodness for that. It would seem that those cow tits of yours finally serve a purpose after all. What? What did you just say to me? Oh, nothing. I was just thinking out loud. I can't do good expressions for her. Say, Kai, do you know how long it takes large breasts to sag? If sagging in old age is the price to pay for a lifetime of elegance, then so be it. I'd much rather endure minor discomfort in my golden years than spend my entire life being mistaken for a boy. You fat piece of... Girls, please, enough bickering. Even if you argue about this, it's not like it'll change anything. As you say. Sophie and Chris turned away from one another, putting a quick end to their unnecessary squabble. Forget it. Chris isn't the one I wanted to speak to anyway. I'm sorry I couldn't do this before, but here. Sophie pulled roughly $30 out of her pocket and handed it to me. Money? Kai, what is this? Mentally cursing Sophie for doing this in front of Chris, I desperately tried to think of a feasible excuse. If you must know, Kai and I skipped class together in order to go shopping. Isn't that right, Kai? Damn it, Sophie, don't tell her that. Kai, is this true? Is that where you went yesterday? Of course it's true. Why would I lie about that? Shut up. I'm not asking you. It's hard to go back and forth between those two. Kai, did you or did you not skip class yesterday to go shopping with Sophie? So I don't want to lie. Well, I do kind of want to lie. But I don't want to hurt. I'm going to make up a lie based off the truth. But we're going to save again. We save it like every crossroads. Why not? Just in case. But we're going to make up a lie based on the truth. Well, there is some truth to what Sophie's saying, but that isn't really what happened. Oh, do go on. Chris glared at me angrily, clearly not happy to hear that there was a basis for Sophie's claims. You see, Chris, I met Sophie at school yesterday after something happened. She got her hair messed up in an unfortunate incident. It was all messy and chopped up, like out of a horror movie or something. A horror movie? Was it really that bad? Are you being serious, Kai? Yes, I'm being serious. She was a complete mess. So I loaned Sophie the money for a haircut, and then we went our separate ways. We did not go shopping, and since you saw me return to class soon after that, we obviously didn't spend any more time together. So I like that we're basically telling the truth to her. But we're obviously siding with Chris for this. If we side with Sophie, I don't know if there's a scenario where both can happen. I'm making a gesture with my hands. I don't know what that means. A lot of times these games do have that kind of option. If it does, we'll figure it out. But Chris weighed up my story against the information at hand. Surely enough, the sum of money that was given me roughly matched the cost of a haircut, and given Sophie's image change, she clearly did get a haircut. Furthermore, I only missed one class. There's no way I had enough time to go shopping. With that being the case, the evidence was clearly in my favor. Yeah, I suppose that sounds feasible. Is what Kai said true, Sophie? Yes, it's true. We didn't go shopping. Kai loaned me the money to get a haircut, and we parted ways. I see. I can't do the girls' voices back to back, it's too hard. Chris breathed a sigh of relief upon receiving confirmation of my innocence, but as the tension escaped from Chris's body, it seems as though Sophie would not bounce back so quickly. I suppose it's time that I excused myself. I'll speak to you later, Kai. I'm sorry we're rejecting you, but we gotta go for Chris. Oh, sure. With no joy in her face, Sophie left Chris and I alone. She headed straight to her desk, meaning to pull out the materials she needed for our first class, then sat alone in silence. About time she left. Liars like her need to know that they can't hide the truth forever. Yeah, you might be right about that. Feeling guilty about selling Sophie out and also for lying to Chris, I too descended into silence. I didn't want to really hurt either one, but I guess I didn't really help the situation. I don't know. The day had only just begun, and already had been on an emotional roller coaster from nightmares to skinship to discord in the classroom. If the morning so far was any indicator of what was yet to come, I might just wind up skipping class once more. So we're going to go ahead and call this episode here. Each of these is kind of going over half an hour. I don't want them to be quite as long. But we did get a little bit more fun at the beginning with Chris making her move and being goofy. And then we made a play explaining, you do that again, you don't know what might happen. And Sophie is back to being somewhat happy, though she didn't like the fact that she kind of put us in a bad situation. Sophie's kind of weird. She puts us in a situation where she knows we're kind of in something with Chris, I guess, but she kind of forced our hand to try to either rebuke Chris, or we could have just straight up said, no, Sophie's lying, she's stupid. We didn't do that, so we kind of did the middle ground. I don't know. But if you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and leave a like, share the video, or subscribe to the channel. Greatly appreciate if you do any or all of those. And the next one, I'm guessing, I thought this was only supposed to be like an hour and a half, 2 hours, but we're already at 2 hours. I'm guessing there's not too much left, but we'll see. We're obviously going to continue to go down the option that looks like we're going to push towards Chris, and hopefully didn't goof anything up. But if we did, I'll obviously restore some saves and we'll see what we can do. But thank you again for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. And as always, please have a great day.